a mock examination walkthrough of the exam that you'll receive next week. So you can keep this recording and play it back for part of your revision. So I'm just going to start sharing the screen so that you can see the exam paper, and we're going to just talk through all parts of it. So you've seen the front cover before. You should be able to see this now. You need to put your name at the front. When you sit your real exam, you need to put the centre number and candidate number as well. The date will be on the front of the exam. And this particular unit, theme 5, weather, climate and ecosystems, is unit 2. The unit 2 paper. You'll sit 2 exam papers. This is the unit 2 one. Usually it would be an hour and a half, but you're only sitting 1 question next week. And so it should fit within a lesson. So within an hour lesson. So on Monday and Tuesday, split across the 2. On the front of your paper, it tells you need a calculator and a ruler, a black or blue ballpoint pen, and then you need to read the instructions as well. Okay, moving on then to the first question. So here you've got study the climate graph below. The climate graph is for Iquios, Peru. So it's a tropical climate graph. On the left-hand side, you've got rainfall in millimeters. On the right-hand side, you've got temperature in degrees Celsius, and you've got the months of the year along the bottom. And the first question is, give the maximum monthly temperature for Iquios, Peru, for 1 mark in degrees Celsius. So it's got the degrees Celsius there, so you need to find the maximum monthly temperature. So maximum means the highest. The temperature is the red line. The rainfall is the blue bars. So the highest temperature, you may want to get a ruler and run it across here and find the highest temperature and put it on that line there for 1 mark. Next question is, calculate the annual range of rainfall for Iquios, Peru. Now to calculate the range, you need to take the smallest from the largest and show your working. So you get 2 marks here. 1 mark is for showing your working around this area here. And then underneath on the line, you need to put the actual answer. So you need to take the highest rainfall from the lowest, the lowest rainfall from the highest rainfall. So you can see this one here in July is your lowest rainfall, and your highest rainfall is in the month of March. So you need to do that calculation there. Question 3. Give 1 reason why the climate of Iquios supports the growth of tropical rainforest. So if you look at the graph to help you, you can see that the temperature across the whole of the year is above 25 degrees Celsius. This is very warm all year. So this will support the growth of plants. Plants like warmth to grow, give them energy. The sunlight gives them energy for photosynthesis, which in turn allows them to flourish, allows them to grow. And additionally, you can see it's a very wet area, particularly from January through to June is very wet. And then again, November, December, quite wet as well. You could use figures here. You can see it's above 250 millimeters, all 5 of these months. And then also at the end of the year as well. It asks you for 2 marks to only give 1 reason why the climate of Iquios supports the growth of tropical rainforest. So you're only going to be allowed to give 1 reason, but the second mark comes from developing the reason. So you can either say about the high rainfall, which then feeds the plants with nutrients, the soils are good and rich and the plants can grow, or you can talk about how the temperature being high and that high amount of sunshine allows photosynthesis, which allows the plants to grow. So choose one of those and develop your point and say how that allows the growth of rainforests to get your second point. Moving down here, describe 2 distinctive features of vegetation in a tropical rainforest. So think back to year 9 when you learned about tropical rainforest structure. You've got 5 layers to the tropical rainforest. So you've got the forest floor, the shrub layer, you've got the understory, then you've got the canopy, then you've got the emergence. So these are distinctive features, but you're only allowed to describe 2 features. So you could talk about the layers, but that's not going to get you 4 marks. You could talk about how they've adapted and certain trees grow very, very tall to reach the sunlight. So they're all in competition with each other to reach as tall as they can, and then say why that is. You could say that the leaves have drip tips, which allows rainfall, the heavy rainfall, to drip off them so that they don't get too heavy and fall off. They've got a pointed edge on them. They're called drip tips. You could talk about that as soon as a tree falls, the gap in the rainforest is filled in very quickly with vegetation, quickly colonized to fill the gap in because there's high productivity here. And again, like I said, you could talk about the layers, the different layers. You could talk about the fact that the warm temperatures here allow fast nutrient decomposition. Leaves that are on the ground are broken down very, very quickly by decomposers. So you could talk about that. You could talk about the high diversity of species, that the rainforests contain half of the Earth's plant species. Now, all of this is way more than 4 marks. You need to choose 2 things, 2 features, and describe them. That's the key word on this question, is describe them. So pick 2, describe the 2. Okay, out of those there. The next one then is about nutrient cycles and the nutrients moving around ecosystems. So it says, study the diagrams below. Nutrient stores and flows in 2 ecosystems. You've got a hot semi-arid grassland and a tundra. Okay, so tundra is very far north on the map, northern Russia, northern Canada. So you've got frozen soils, they're very cold regions. They remain cold for the majority of the year, only melting during springtime, and even then it's not very warm. Whereas a hot semi-arid grassland remains dry and hot all year. So the circles are proportional, which means large circles is a lot, shows a lot, represents a lot, and smaller circles represent less. You've got biomass. Biomass is living things, so the leaf litter, the leaf, the roots, the trunk of the tree, the grass, whatever it is, okay, the vegetation. The litter is what's on the ground, any twigs and leaves, and then the soil is the soil. So then a question says, give the largest flow shown on the tundra nutrient cycle. So the tundra one is the one on the right. Tick 1 box from the options below. So you've got to look at the arrows because they're showing you which is large, which is small. And you've got to look for the largest arrow in the tundra and tick the correct answer there. Is it soil to biomass? Is it precipitation? Or is it biomass to litter? Then it says, explain why decomposition is an important part of the nutrient cycle. So you should know this a little bit from science, from biology. Decomposition is very, very important in nutrient cycles. And it happens even more so, even quicker when it's warm and wet like it is in the rainforest. And it enables nutrients that are locked in the leaves, in the leaf litter, to be released back into the soil so that they can be absorbed by plant roots, allowing new growth. And the circle goes around. So without decomposition, nutrients would remain locked in dead leaves, which would hinder the growth of future plants, future generations of plants. So we need those leaves on the ground to decompose, so the nutrients to go back into the soil, so that next spring we have new life growing, new plants, new trees growing. And that goes for the UK as well as rainforests, okay? Forests everywhere, this goes on. It's just that it happens much more quickly in a rainforest because it's much warmer and they have the perfect conditions for decomposition. So moving down this, then you've got some study the climate graph questions. And it says, climate graph of the hot semi-arid grassland and a climate graph of the tundra. So you can really see the differences now in the climate, the tundra being extremely cold and not very much rainfall, and the grassland being very, very hot, and rainfall is kind of sporadic and certain months are higher than the others. So you've then got a map underneath showing you where they're located. You can see the tundra is in the very light blue region in the north, and the grassland is in, you can see Southern Africa there, central Southern Africa. Okay. So the question asks for 6 marks. Suggest reasons for the differences between the 2 nutrient cycles on page 3. Use the resources on pages 3 and 4 to help your answer. So we're looking for differences and reasons for the differences between the 2 nutrient cycles. Use these 2 graphs and this map, and also use these 2 nutrient cycles to help you give your answer. So you're going to be flicking back and forth in the exam paper to do this answer. So what are the reasons for the differences in the nutrient cycles then? Let's have a look at them. These are the nutrient cycles. So first of all, a semi-arid grassland will have a lot more vegetation than a tundra would. So the tundra is very, very cold. There's hardly any vegetation, just grasses. Whereas in a grassland, you will get some trees, and it's semi-arid, so you get different layers of trees as well. So the biomass is a lot larger than it is in the tundra because life can survive here more easily than it can in freezing cold conditions. It doesn't support life. Okay, now because of that, your litter is a lot more in a hot semi-arid grassland because there's more plants to shed their leaves. But in the tundra, you've only got grass, so there's not going to be any plants to shed leaves and drop leaves on the ground. So the litter's a lot smaller too. And because of that, there's not much decomposition that happens, especially in the tundra. It's too cold for decomposition. The leaves or any litter on the ground just freezes and doesn't decompose very well. So it doesn't give nutrients to the soil. So the soil is very small here. You can see the circle is very small, whereas in the semi-arid grassland, soil circle is a lot bigger because you have more leaf decomposition. It's slightly warmer, well, it's a lot warmer, sorry, but you have a lot more leaves on the ground that decompose, putting nutrients back into the soil, so the soil can be richer, more nutrients to support new life, and that leads to more biomass again back up in the top circle. The other one is very cold and doesn't support plant life very well, so all three circles are very small. Okay, now don't forget to talk about the arrows in between. You can see that larger arrows means more is happening and the smaller arrows means less. You can see a lot more decomposition happening in the grassland compared to the tundra. You can see a lot more weathering in the grassland compared to the tundra. Now weathering will put nutrients back into the soil as well, allowing a better soil to support more life. Weathering breaks down rocks and puts nutrients back into the soil. Okay. Because there's more rainfall in the grassland, you've got more runoff here from the litter, washing nutrients back into the soil, whereas in the tundra, not much rainfall, so not much runoff. So your job is to talk about the differences between those two nutrient cycles. And if you need to, you can use these diagrams here to help you as well, to say about the climate, lots of rainfall or not much rainfall, or lots of heat or not much heat, if you need to use them. You're looking for 6 marks here. Okay, and to get 5 to 6 marks, you need to apply good understanding of the link between climate and the elements of the nutrient cycles. Your meaning needs to be clear and it needs to be organised and well structured. Okay, but you definitely need to keep linking back to the nutrient cycle. Okay, and you can only reach band 2, so that's 3 to 4 marks, if you only talk about one nutrient cycle. So you have to talk about the two, tundra and grassland, to be able to reach marks 5 and 6 on this. Okay, so we'll move on. C is define biodiversity. Is it an environment in which plants and animals live? Is it a very large ecosystem, or is it the variety of living things? So tick the correct answer there. That's a straightforward one, so we'll move on. Then it says the table below shows the total number of species of mammals and corals in the world. It also shows the number of those species that are vulnerable in each group. Calculate the percentage of coral species that are vulnerable. Okay, so you need to show your working for 1 mark and give your answer for another mark, and your answer goes on this line here that's empty in the table. So to do that, you're going to need to divide one number by another number and times it by 100 to give you a percentage. So you're working out the percentage of coral species. So you're going to use these two figures. So you do 400 divided by 700 times 100, and it's going to give you this answer here. But you have to show your working and write the answer to get the 2 marks. Okay. Study the graph below, threats to global biodiversity. So you've got a stacked bar graph. This is called a stacked bar graph. On the x-axis, you've got species of coral, reptile, mammals, amphibians, birds. On the y-axis, you've got the number of species and how many species. And you've got a key here for the colours to tell you how threatened they are. Are they very, very threatened, extinct? Are they endangered? Are they not really that much concern? And they ask you, describe the differences between mammal and coral species in the graph. So describe the differences. So you can see that there's more mammals than coral species that are threatened. So you could give figures. There's 5,250 mammals, but only 750 corals that are threatened. So use some figures and compare. Remember, the question is describe differences. So you're only going to get the 2 marks if you compare something. You've got to say something is high, something is low, and compare. You could compare the breakdown of the bar components. You could say you need to say most or least. Most mammals are of least concern, whereas most corals are vulnerable. And when you quantify, that gives you another mark as well. The key thing here is to compare something large with something smaller, something higher with something lower, maybe giving some figures. Okay. The next one then, describe the differences shown between mammal and coral species in the graph opposite. Oh, sorry, we just did that one, didn't we? Okay, moving down. So you've got two photographs here. Two photographs. Study the photographs' coral reef ecosystems and suggest why biodiversity is suffering in ecosystems such as coral reefs for 3 marks. Now, everyone tends to just write, oh, litter. Now, you won't get any marks for just writing litter. You need to elaborate a little bit and describe what you mean. So 3 marks here. So you could say something like the litter from the boat. So you need to say where it's coming from, because it's come from people, isn't it? Why is the biodiversity suffering? So then you need to link the litter. Litter on its own isn't going to kill the fish. You need to say how it kills the fish. You need to say how it kills the fish. Okay, so litter from boats may be swallowed by wildlife for 1 mark. Pollutants can travel from locations far away due to ocean currents. So you could say that pollution in the water can travel from far away, choking the wildlife. Tourists do not understand how fragile the ecosystem is, and you can see they're using boats with engines, they're scuba diving, so their equipment may bump the corals and affect the corals for a long time. Corals take millions of years to grow, and so once we damage them, we won't be getting them back anytime soon. People remove coral and fish, which affects the rest of the ecosystem if you remove them as well. And you could say something like climate change is killing the coral, so then the animals are affected, the fauna, the fish are affected as well. Okay, so for 3 marks, you need to say what the problem is. Is it litter? Is it pollution? Is it damage? Is it people don't understand? But then say, how does that affect biodiversity? Because unless you say that, you won't get all the marks. Okay. And that is the end of that. Apologies, people came in towards the end then. But that is the paper I'm going to give you next Monday and Tuesday. I may throw 1 extra question in, okay, 1 extra one. But that's the majority of the paper that you'll see on Monday and Tuesday next week. Any questions on that, you can always come and see me, okay? And I will leave it there. Good luck.